Hello and welcome to Global Eye. Today on the show, we have an exclusive interaction with former US Commerce Secretary Carlos Gutierrez to discuss about the financial impact of COVID-19 on the United States. But before that, our top story. Are India-UAE ties under strain today after a large number of coronavirus cases in India were traced back to a Tabligh Jamaat congregation in Delhi? Gulf royals and intellectuals have been keeping a close watch on certain objectionable social media posts as well. In a related development, the US Commission on International Religious Freedom has also recommended India to be designated as a country of particular concern. Now, how will these developments impact India's image globally? Joining us to talk about this is our consulting editor, Network 18, Praveen Swami. He's joining us. We're also joined by Talmiz Ahmed, India's former envoy to Saudi Arabia, UAE, and other Gulf nations. Ambassador Ahmed, if I can come to you right now, speaking about what's been happening between India and Gulf. India has rejected these Twitter posts saying that some tweets cannot be used to judge ties between India and Gulf nations. Do you think it's so simple? Do you think we need to be concerned right now?
I think we have every reason to be seriously concerned. These exchanges of Twitter traffic, they are not accidental. As you know, hate messages have been churned out from India and have been sent globally and have been picked up by the cohorts of the Hindutva Brigade over several years. Now it has reached the stage where these messages have been seen and read by people in the Gulf. And they have responded. They've responded quite forcefully. And there is a pervasive sense that enough is enough. I think that there is a degree of official sanction as well with regard to these pervasive responses that we have seen. So yes, I think that we have every reason to be very seriously concerned about the significant deterioration in our ties with this region.
Right. Praveen, if I can get you in at this point, the Prime Minister visited Gulf 5 times since 2014. There have been 5 high-level visits from different Gulf countries. Are we losing out on the gains that we have made?
I think absolutely. I mean, developing, deepening ties with the Persian Gulf states and with West Asia has been one of the linchpins of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's foreign policy. And it's yielded huge dividends for India over these years in terms of, everything from economic investment to counter-terrorism cooperation. Yes, unfortunately, some of the ugliness that we've seen online and political developments within India do place pressure. Now, there's a school of thought that, leaders recognize that this is just political, this is something that can be put to one side. But we have to remember that with economies in the Persian Gulf themselves straining, leaders there are under pressure as well. And in that sense, public anger against what is said online or what happens in India will have consequences. I think this is definitely something policymakers will have to worry about.
Right. Ambassador Ahmed, do you think these issues, these strains in relations will persist, or will the recent tweets by the Prime Minister, by all our envoys who are warning Indians not to make any objectionable comments or anti-minority comments on social media, do you think this will help repair ties?
My answer would be that in the short term, no major changes are likely. Our relationship goes back 5,000 years. It has been consistently strengthened, and Prime Minister has personally invested a lot of time and effort in these relations. They are not going to be overturned overnight. So what I would say is that there is now a warning that has come from the Gulf, from our best friends, from our close friends. And it is the duty of close friends to warn us, to say that there is something going wrong and you should address it. At the end of the day, these are moderate countries, they are enlightened countries, but they are also Muslim countries. And they cannot have a regime that would permit such a massive hostility for a particular community in India and occasional abuse and even violence from time to time. It cannot be acceptable. It is not acceptable that this should be part of an Indian agenda, and we can still anticipate a very normal relationship with the Gulf. Prime Minister's intervention was useful, but it came, I think, much too late. and the tone was also seen as quite half-hearted. I think we need to be a little more robust. What we need to do is to change things at home. And only then, when there is visible change at home, should we expect that there will be a better and more positive response from the region.
Okay, Praveen, to get you in, there are 8 million Indians in the Gulf. Do you think this could impact job opportunities for Indian nationals? We've seen an order by the Oman government which says that all state-owned companies should send back expats, replace them with Omani nationals. India says this is not India-specific. It's a continuing order. But what do you foresee?
It's certainly true that the Oman order refers to the public sector, and you've had similar efforts in place across West Asia for quite some years right now. But we have to remember that since 2014, the labor market across the Gulf has been in a considerable degree of pain. The size of the Indian diaspora has fallen steadily as the labor market has shrunk. And in the sort of post-pandemic situation where it's likely that economies there will be under tremendous pressure because of the decline in oil prices, there's probably some more savagery in the labor market to be expected. Having said that, there are some real opportunities for India here too. India has an opportunity to step up. India is going to remain one of the largest consumers of the Persian Gulf's energy. It has the opportunity to step up to base and be seen as a reliable partner at a moment of crisis, and thereby build this and grow this relationship. Unfortunately, some of these developments placing those positive possibilities in some doubt. And I think the lesson here should be the way we behave at home will have consequences for us abroad, which we, as a nation, should be mindful of.
Right. Talking about the USCIRF's recent recommendation for India to be designated as a country of particular concern, Ambassador Ahmad, do you think this is going to impact India's image globally? This is the first time this has happened since 2004.
This is not the first time. In 2017, the same commission had issued a similar report. It was at that time a warning. It had placed us in a category of countries that have a record of non-tolerance. So this is a continuum from the 2017 report. It is even more scathing because it takes into account our initiatives in Jammu and Kashmir, as well as our Citizenship Amendment Act, and what has been happening with regard to the population register. This is part of a pattern. This pattern has been viewed as anti-Muslim within India, and it is obviously seen in the same light by foreign nations as well. I think that there is every reason to be concerned, because the warning to us and about what is happening within the country has not just come from the Gulf. It is today being reflected in large sections of the global media, as well as an institution of high standing such as the American Commission on International Religious Freedom. This is something odd for us.
Right.
We are a society that has been democratic, that has been secular, that has been accommodative and pluralistic, and suddenly we find ourselves in this extraordinary category of countries that do not provide religious freedom. This is not a category in which India belongs, and it is time that we got out of it.
Okay, Praveen, my final question to you on this. The MEA has called this report biased, tendentious. Do you think we can afford to dismiss it? Do you think this warning should be taken very seriously along with those warning messages coming from the Gulf?
You could take the position that look at the other countries on this list. You look at there's China over there, which has a terrible record with Muslims in Xinjiang. You have Pakistan with a long list of crimes against religious minorities, but that hasn't stopped the US from doing business with them, and it really doesn't matter. There may be some truth in that, but having said that, this report comes out at a time when India's relationships with American Democrats have become frayed for a variety of reasons. There's been a lot of completely unnecessary and ugly name-calling on both sides of the aisle. And in that context, particularly if this next election sees a Democratic president elected, Joe Biden is a friend of India. He has many people on his staff who are friends of India. but you're going to be up against a number of people with whom India has damaged its relationship, and this report is going to be one more stake for them to beat India with when the time comes. I think the overall point is that we're not gaining anything by making enemies in a fraught global context. And sometimes we would be wise to realize that we need to be sensitive to context and try and develop and grow our friendships rather than to react with anger and and hostility to critical comments made by friends.
Right. Praveen, thank you for putting it so well, and thank you very much, Ambassador Ahmed, as well, for joining us with all those valuable views. We're going to take a short break at this point. When we return, we get you an exclusive interview with former U.S. Secretary of Commerce, Carlos Gutierrez. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Global Eye. With us right now is the former U.S. Secretary of Commerce, Mr. Carlos Gutierrez. Mr. Gutierrez, thank you very much for speaking to CNBC-TV18. Our first question. As a result of the COVID-19 crisis, the U.S. economy has seen the worst contraction since 2008. More than 30 million U.S. citizens have filed for unemployment claims. How is the coronavirus pandemic likely to change America?
Well, it will change in many ways, some of which we probably can't even imagine today. It's going to have an impact, obviously, on American trade, on globalization. We're not the only country that is looking at supply chains, and there is a lot of discussion around supply chains that aren't located in the U.S., potentially for another crisis in the future. What happens if we cannot source materials for pharmaceuticals or for even food supplies? So that tends to be an undercurrent that's out there. That's something to watch. The economic aspects have impacted not just the economy, the unemployment. There has been a realization or a recognition of the inequality in society. Folks who are on the lower part of the income brackets are the ones who have to work. Other people are staying at home and receiving a paycheck. Others who are unemployed are hopefully going to get some government help. But clearly the divisions of inequality have been heightened. One of the positive aspects is that there's a boost in technology, not just in these tools that we're using right now, Zoom or WebEx, other things, but I believe that this is going to change and be a pivotal point for the use of technology. People are getting used to ordering from home, a lot more e-commerce. So that is something that we'll have to watch, but this could be that moment where technology really does take off, and the 2.0 or 4.0 that people have been talking about will look back and realize that it was during this time. But there are so many implications. I'm sure.
Secretary Gutierrez?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, Secretary, I'd also like to ask you, globalization versus nationalization. Do you feel that America will look more inwards now? Do you feel that the trade war with China could worsen? The president's approach to trade, to America first, will be greater now?
Yes, I believe so. This is a bad time for globalization. It's globalization itself is in the intensive care unit. It's not just the U.S., but there are about 70 different countries around the world that have put in export controls. The idea of self-sufficiency has become fashionable. I don't see the U.S. Winding down the trade war with China. If anything, there is talk about increasing it and strengthening it. So there's more discussion about export controls, about foreign investment controls as well. So I believe this is a moment where countries are looking inside regrettably, because I think it's going to impact the world economy, but there is heightened awareness of supply chains. Yes.
Right. So Secretary Gutierrez, just to speak to you about what the White House economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, said recently. He spoke about paying for the moving costs of companies to relocate. Japan has come up with a package of $2.2 billion to help companies relocate. Can the U.S. come up with a similar package?
Well, that would be a unique program in the U.S., and I'm sure would have certain amount of controversy, but it's very much in line with what the administration is trying to do, trying to bring back manufacturers, especially as a way to target China at a time when tensions with China have increased. So the U.S. would like to see, this administration would like to see iPhones made in the U.S. instead of China. The key question, of course, is are consumers willing to pay 2 or 3 times more for that iPhone because it's made in a higher cost environment? But clearly that is a policy objective of the administration, is to bring back manufacturing to the U.S.
Right. Speaking to you about jobs in the United States, we've seen unemployment claims surging past the 30 million mark. President Trump has decided to review immigration, also the H-1B visa program as well. There is going to be greater focus on hiring local workers. Do you think countries like India and our IT workers could be impacted as a result? Do you think the H-1B visa program would be severely curtailed over the next few months?
I believe that all immigration will come under more scrutiny, high-skilled and low-skilled. And up until now, there was a tightening, and this will be a further tightening. And the key question will be the economy, because immigration helps the economy. It helps increase the labor force. We know that our birth rate of our working age population is not high enough. So we need immigration in order to grow, in order to thrive. It's a bit ironic, but I'm sure that when we discover the team that is working on a vaccine, that we'll find, I'm sure, that as part of that team, there are perhaps Indian immigrants or Chinese immigrants. So immigrants play a very important role in this economy. And I hope that this is just temporary, but no question, this is a time when the administration is clamping down on immigration.
Right. Do you see this crisis and the U.S. concerns over China, over manufacturing, over the origin of the coronavirus? Do you feel this will bring India and the United States closer?
Well, it could, from the standpoint that there is a desire to rely less on China. There is a desire to take manufacturing out of China. There's concern that there could be competition for healthcare products, that there will be some hoarding of healthcare products. So yes, to the extent that India can open, that it could be welcoming toward U.S. investment, I believe it could be a good time, and it could be an advantage for India.
Right. Our final question would be about American politics. So there is a strong debate going on over the U.S. government's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. What do you think will be the impact of this crisis, of this pandemic, on the election in the United States?
Well, I think this will be what the election is going to be about. It will be a COVID-19 election. Maybe not so much the economy per se, because people understand that this was impacted by an outside event. But it's going to be about the handling of the COVID-19 crisis. Right now, this week, today, there are many states that are opening up. And the concern, of course, is, are they opening up too early? And if there is a sense that because of that early opening, that casualties have increased, that will backfire. And the administration has been very vocal about wanting to open up the economy. So this is a time where that risk will come to light. And it's a time to watch what happens in those states that are beginning to open up and whether they see an increase in cases.
Right. Secretary Gutierrez, thank you very much for speaking to us and sharing your important perspective with our viewers here in India. That's all we could pack in on this edition of Global Eye. Thank you for watching and goodbye.